comrades and friends. Welcome to the program, Global Weekly News, serial number 143. First, Paris Commune Revolution. Up, up socialism, down with capitalism. On 18th March 1871, the working class of Paris, joined by members of the National Guard, rose up to overthrow the bourgeois government and establish a proletarian administration run by workers' councils. This marked one of the most significant early attempts to create a working class socialist society. During its brief but inspiring 2-month existence, the Paris Commune achieved remarkable milestones. Education for all became a right. Factories were placed under workers' control. Immigrants were granted equal rights. The people of Paris worked together to build a classless society, challenging the foundations of capitalism. However, the French bourgeoisie, with the support of German troops, brutally crushed the Commune. At least 30,000 revolutionaries were massacred, but their legacy lives on as a beacon of resistance and hope. Karl Marx saw the Commune as a first example of how the working class could smash the capitalist state and reorganize society in its own class interests. The Commune became an enduring inspiration for Marxists globally. Its heroic experience showed the working class revolutionary capacity when organized and conscious. Second item, comrades, is the Paris Commune, of course, failed due to non-inclusion of agriculture peasants and agricultural workers as their allies in their fight against the bourgeois government. There should have been an alliance of worker-peasant unity during the Paris Commune period, but that didn't happen, so it failed. Second, comrades, student protests grow in Serbia. Hundreds of thousands of people flooded the streets of Belgrade on 15th March in one of the largest protests of its kind in Serbia. While authorities reported about 107,000 participants, independent surveys estimated around 325,000, and organizers on the ground claimed at least 5 lakh. The demonstration marked the culmination of student mobilizations demanding justice for the victims of the Novi Sad train station canopy collapse, which claimed 15 lives. Students, farmers and workers from across Serbia traveled to Belgrade to participate in the protest. At the beginning of the march, series of nationwide mobilizations had taken place in over 400 locations. Student groups accused authorities of deliberately destructing people's ability to reach the capital, noting that railway connections and bus lines operated by private contracts were cancelled in an apparent attempt to repress participation. Third item, comrades, with the US support, Israel resumes its genocidal assault on Gaza. Israel resumed its genocidal aggression on Gaza in the early hours of 18th March with a series of airstrikes that killed over 400 Palestinians, many of them women and children. Hundreds more were injured. Shortly after the attacks were launched, White House spokesperson told Fox News that Israel consulted the US on its intention to launch aerial attacks on the besieged enclave. He said, as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel but also the US will see a price to pay. all hell will break loose. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the airstrikes targeting Gaza are only the beginning and that all ceasefire talks going forward will be held under fire. Israel's defense minister threatened that if Hamas does not release all Israeli captives, blows will only increase and intensify. The resumption of the genocide came after Israel obstructed The resumption of the genocide came after Israel obstructed negotiations on the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire. It also followed more than 2 weeks of Israel's full blockade on humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. It is worth noting that Israel reportedly committed hundreds of violations of the ceasefire agreement in its first phase itself, which included killing civilians, home demolitions, land bulldozing, preventing displaced persons from returning to their home regions, military advances beyond the agreed upon withdrawal lines, obstructing reconstruction, airspace violations, delaying Palestinian prisoners' releases. All major Palestinian factions have categorically condemned Israel's unilateral violation of the ceasefire deal. A number of countries also condemned the resumption of the aggression, including China, Russia, Egypt, Qatar, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, France, UK, Ireland, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Switzerland and Australia. India did not condemn. The United Nations sharply condemned Israel's aggression. Secretary General said he was outraged by airstrikes. People's movements and organizations across the globe that have been mobilizing for the past 16 months against Israel's genocide in Gaza also responded to Israel's attacks and called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. On 18th March, people in major cities in the United States, Morocco, Italy and other countries were already on the streets demanding an arms embargo on Israel and a return to the ceasefire. Several analysts suggest that Netanyahu resorted to resuming the war on Gaza to escape from an immediate political impasse, especially as he was set to testify in his corruption trial on 18th March. Fourth item, comrades, NATO countries rising arms exports. The United States and its North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO allies, control over 80% of all arms and weapons exports for the constant wars and conflicts around the globe. Benefiting immensely from the war in Ukraine, the US increased its total share in global arms exports to 43% in the period between 2020 and 2024. US supplies arms to 107 countries across the globe. Share of France is 9.6%, share of Germany is 5.6%. NATO countries, and if one includes South Korea 2.2% and Israel 3.1%, the US closest non-NATO allies, their combined share comes to over 75%. Russia's share is 7.8%, China's share is 5.9%. Ukraine emerged as the largest importer of weapons thanks to the war with Russia. The US supplied 45% of all weapons imported by Ukraine, while the rest of the delivery was covered by other NATO members. The first Donald Trump administration had repeatedly asked its NATO allies in Europe to increase the defense expenditure in order to reduce their dependence on the United States. In its second term also, Trump calls on NATO partners to increase military spending to 5% of the budget. India remained the world's second largest importer of arms. Fifth item, comrade, is a very good, very important item. You can see the contrast between two worlds. One is the suffering world and the other is shining world. Suffering world and shining world. Shining world. Healthcare in Cuba, a model for the world. Dr. Cosme Ordonez Carceller Teaching Polyclinic in Havana stands as a testament to the nation's unique approach to healthcare. Universal community-centered and deeply rooted in preventive medicine. Unlike the profit-driven models that dominate much of the world, Cuba's system prioritizes equitable access, public health education, and early intervention. At the core of this approach is commitment to health promotion through education, disease prevention through habit management, and the integration of medical care and rehabilitation. By emphasizing proactive health care rather than reactive treatment, the system ensures that communities receive continuous comprehensive support to maintain overall well-being. At the community level, municipal health departments manage Cuba's extensive polyclinic network. These polyclinics not only provide specialized care, diagnostics, and emergency services, but they also coordinate closely with the family doctor and nurse teams who serve as the first point of contact for Cuban citizens. These frontline providers play a crucial role beyond immediate treatment, emphasizing preventive care, home visits, and alternative therapies such as nutrition counseling, acupuncture, and plant-based medicine, herbal medicines, etc. Despite enduring over 6 decades of economic embargo, Cuba has achieved remarkable public health milestones. AIDS. Cuba identified HIV in 1983 and quickly set up a system to track and treat it. By 2014, it eliminated mother-to-child transmission of AIDS, a milestone the US has yet to reach. Second, COVID. Cuba developed 2 COVID vaccines, kept infections low, and even sent vaccines abroad. Third, diabetes. Cuba developed an effective medication that treats diabetic ulcers, including skin wounds. Fourth, Alzheimer's research. Cuba has developed a drug that may help reverse Alzheimer's effects. Alzheimer's means, people don't remember what happened before. This forgetting tendency. Maternal fetal medicine. 99% of Cuban children are vaccinated, and the country has a lower infant mortality rate than the US. Nutrition. While obesity is not an issue in Cuba, malnutrition is an increasing concern due to shortages caused by the US embargo. Home health. Doctors make house calls to care for the elderly and new mothers. In the United States, medical students take on crippling debt, often exceeding $2 lakh. In rupee terms, 1.75 crore rupees. The pressure to repay loans stress many towards high-paying specialties, leaving primary care and rural communities underserved. For the United States and the capitalist world, medicine is a business first, a service second. In Cuba, medical education is completely state-funded. The US embargo continues to hinder Cuba's healthcare system by restricting access to essential medicines medical equipment and scientific research. Pharmaceutical and shipping companies, fearing U.S. penalties, avoid business with Cuba, leading to severe shortage of everything from aspirin to cancer treatments. Even medical journals and online resources are blocked due to U.S. restrictions. For decades, Cuba has exported medical expertise worldwide, sending doctors to disaster-stricken and underserved regions. In February 2025, the United States expanded sanctions on Cuba's international medical program. Cuba's full potential for expansion of medical advancements in infectious diseases, chronic illness treatment, and disaster response is hindered by U.S. sanctions. You see, comrades, the biggest and the largest enemy of the people in the globe is U.S. imperialism. United States just wants to crush the socialist revolution of Cuba. Therefore, it has imposed sanctions for more than 6 decades on Cuba. Besides, Trump has included Cuba again in the list of countries sponsoring terrorism. Such is the atrocity, such is the barbaric nature of U.S. imperialism. Down with U.S. imperialism, up Cuban socialism. 6th item, comrades, Pedro Castillo on hunger strike. In South American country, Peru, Pedro Castillo was elected as president in 2022. He is a left progressive president. He was a rural teacher and a trade unionist. The far-right forces are a majority in the parliament. An impeachment motion was passed against Castillo, and Pedro Castillo was removed from his position and put in jail in 2022 December. The deputy president, Dina Boluarte, became the president. The prosecution is requesting 34 years in prison against Petro for allegedly having attempted a self-coup, although Castillo has maintained that all he did was make a political speech and attempt to establish a constituent assembly that sought to create a constitution in favor of the poorest of Peru's people. Pedro Castillo has been on a hunger strike since 10th March in protest to what he considers a bogus trial arranged to destroy the legacy of his government. The trial began on 4th March. After his dismissal and imprisonment by the right-wing government of Dina Boluarte, several historic protests and mobilizations were unleashed in Peru. Boluarte's government harshly repressed the protests, leaving dozens dead and hundreds injured. In Washington, D.C., several Peruvians staged a sit-in outside the Peruvian embassy to demand the release of Castillo. Roger Waters, a musician and activist, expressed his support for Castillo. Waters stressed that the struggle of Western powers for control of lithium in Peru could be behind Castillo's removal. 7th item, comrades, Donald Trump deports 250 Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador. The Trump administration deported roughly 250 Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador on 15th March, and that same day, federal judge ordered a halt to the deportation, which the president ignored. The flights carrying the deported migrants were already outside the U.S. territory when the order came from the judge. On 14th March, Trump signed an executive order invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1978. This is to deport Venezuelan migrants who belong to a terrorist group, as per US administration. Trump accuses the gang of supporting the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the American continent, including the US. Venezuela government denies all such accusations, and the Venezuelan migrants did not commit any crime in the US. The Party for Socialism and Liberation in USA condemned the deportation. The president of El Salvador immediately transferred all the Venezuelan immigrants to the terrorism confinement center for a period of 1 year, where they will do hard work. Lastly, comrades, we go to Sudan. Sudan suspends imports from Kenya, Africa. Sudan-Kenya relations have taken a drastic turn following Sudan's decision to suspend all imports from Kenya. This move comes after Kenya hosted representatives of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in Nairobi last month, where they signed a charter to form a parallel government in Sudan. On 28th February, the Sudanese government recalled its ambassador to Kenya. Sudan accused Kenya of violating international law, the UN Charter, and the African Union's Constitution Act. Rapid Support Forces continue to perpetrate genocide, massacre civilians on the ethnic basis, and commit acts of rape. The African Union and its Peace and Security Council also condemned Rapid Support Forces' attempt to form a parallel government. Sudan is determined to resist any actions that threaten its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Sudan has historically been one of Kenya's largest tea importers, and the loss of this key market could have financial ramifications for Kenyan tea producers and exports. Thank you, comrades. Lal Salam. See you next week.